Okay, I got a thumbs up, so hopefully everyone can hear me. I appreciate you coming at a very last minute invite, and I hope to do one of these each month through the season to help explain our process and also answer questions that I'm guessing that a lot of people will have similar questions. So happy to answer it all at once. Feel free. We don't have a lot of people joining right now, so feel free if you do want to unmute and ask a question as I'm speaking. I'm happy to take a pause, or if you want to type anything in the chat as well, I'll be happy to do that as well. And I'm Shay Lunseth. I'm the owner of Organic Lawns by Lunseth. And I just want to go over kind of the just some basic things about our program and what to expect, and then also go over just our first couple services. So things that many of you might have already been receiving the corn gluten this spring, or will be receiving soon. We'll be doing that service through about the first week of May. So we still have a little bit of time yet for that first application. So I'm going to share a presentation here. And can you guys see that okay? Okay, great.
Yes.
Awesome. Thank you. Okay, so this is kind of just an organic lawn care 101. So in the beginning, I like to share a little bit about, why you should go organic. I think a lot of customers already know their why, but I like to just go over that a little bit quickly for some of the reasons that we would like to point out. So we'll go over why go organic, talk about our spring services, and then move into some watering tips for the season, and then what to expect from the season. So why go organic? Basically, I think it's about kids and pets and insects and critters that live around us and the water and in the environment in general. Specifically, we have a lot of dog owners or pet owners. Those animals are more susceptible because they're down in the grass, they breathe it, they absorb it. A lot of times when you walk around town and you see signs for chemical applications, they'll say stay off for 24 hours. A lot of pesticides, synthetic pesticides and chemicals, it's really more than that. It's in the grass for up to weeks or months. So we're providing an alternative so that pets can use the lawn safely after application. Children, similar to pets, are kind of breathing and absorbing the lawn differently than adults do. I think the specifically for children is that their bodies are developing. So anything that we put that gets into their body as they're developing could be harmful for them more so than it is for an adult. Beneficial insects. Sometimes people don't think about the insects in general, but insects are part of our lawn. They're part of our environment. They are beneficial in many ways that we don't necessarily recognize or see. They break down organic matter. They provide nutrients to our plants. So these are things that we want to support within our lawn. You can see here the soil food web. This is just a general picture about if we are controlling parts of our lawn, we're controlling part of an ecosystem that many things rely on. So taking out beneficial organisms within the soil can disrupt the way the whole environment in our lawn works, so that we can think about the things like birds and animals that share our world with us, that those would be negatively affected when we start controlling things in our soil and in our grass. And then the other part is waterways. So we know that fast release fertilizers, those can quickly get washed into our water and create areas of excessive growth, which can harm the things that live in that water or adjacent to it. So something to keep in mind when we're considering, why we're going organic in our home lawns. So the first step of our program that most people are going to be receiving, many of you might have already received it or will get to it soon, is going to be corn gluten meal. So that's our early spring application. It is a pre-emergent. It is also a fertilizer. We give little tips about what to do before and after. The most significant thing you have to keep in mind is seeding and making sure that the corn gluten doesn't negatively affect any seeding efforts that we have in the springtime. So we give some tips about if you seed before the application or after, how either I say it in a general sense, you can wait about 3 weeks before or after, or you can seed into new topsoil or compost, something that's going to create a barrier from that corn gluten to the new seed germinating. So, a little bit about corn gluten specifically is that it is the protein part of corn. It has to be 60% of that protein for it to have that ability to suppress weeds. It is the byproduct of the wet milling process of corn, so something that would otherwise be used in dog food or other feed for livestock. We source non-GMO corn. That was something that wasn't always available and now is available. So that's what we source for our applications. And so corn gluten meal, it has about 9 to 10% nitrogen in it. So it is a fertilizer. We are using it and applying it at rates that it is going to be inhibiting things that are trying to germinate. It's going to inhibit them from doing so completely. So it inhibits the root growth of germinating seeds. So that's why seeding grass seed at the same time can be negatively affected with corn gluten meal, and we separate those services out. Um, Seeds that there's a lot of things that will start germinating once the soil gets to be about 55 degrees. So that's why our timing is early spring, because we're going to apply this before most of those weeds start to do their germination process. One thing that is interesting to note is a lot of times the hardest part in a lawn for weeds is going to be along the driveway, along the sidewalk, the boulevards. Those are areas that the concrete can heat up that soil even as soon as February if we have some no snow cover sunny days. So those are going to be areas that the weed seeds could have warm soil, and so they'll germinate much quicker and earlier than other parts of the lawn. So those are areas that typically are hard for us to control completely, or why those are kind of constant problems in lawns is because of that heat zone effect. Um, and another thing to note is that the corn gluten meal, it's not going to affect anything that's already established. So perennial weeds, ones that are here year to year, that would be one like creeping Charlie. The root has already formed on that weed. It just has gone dormant over the winter. So that's not something that corn gluten meal can prevent. But it is going to prevent things like crabgrass that are annual weeds, and something we don't see the crabgrass now. We see it in July. But it starts that germination process in spring. And so the aim of that corn gluten application now is to prevent those spring weeds, those annual weeds from germinating. It does take time. So you can see in this image, this was back in the 80s when there was a trial for corn gluten meal. They didn't know it suppressed weeds, but they found that in a study, and then they played with rates, and so you can put on a very, very thick heavy rate of corn gluten meal, and it can do a very good job of suppressing a lot of weeds in the season. It'd be very expensive, and it would look like a kind of a mulched orange in the lawn. So we do it at the rates that it's going to be effective for the minimum for it to be effective for weed control. So it won't just act like a fertilizer. Sometimes when people buy their own corn gluten and say it didn't do anything, it's usually because you didn't put enough. You have to put a very good amount on there for it to have any ability to prevent the weeds from germinating. So timing and rates would be very critical on that. Um, we are doing it in a process that in 3 years, we can get about 75% of new weeds prevented from germinating. So that first year, it's only going to be about 25%, second year, 50, third year, 75 plus. We're working on that seed bank, and this is just one of our tools for preventing weeds. Then the service that we'll do next for most people is going to be a liquid iron with organic fertilizer. Some people have custom programs, so they may not have both of these services, but this would be the next in our standard program. And that we're kind of timing. You'll see there's a few dandelions coming out there, but we're timing it with once we've moved from that pre-emergent window to our post-emergent window, typically brought on with some dandelion bloom is when we start this service. So one of the things is the organic fertilizer that we put down. This slide is just showing the difference between organic and synthetic. Really, there is a difference in how it works for the plant. So synthetic fertilizers, um, those can weaken the grass roots. They can increase water needs. Don't necessarily think about all soil nutrients and replacing those. And the most important thing is whatever the plant doesn't need at the time of that application, then whatever's left it could get wasted or washed away. So sometimes the plants or the soil doesn't need nutrients maybe at this moment. The difference with organic is that the fertilizer will be put down. Whatever the plant doesn't need, the fertilizer will stay there in the soil. It has to be broken down by microbes, so it needs that microbes in the soil to process it to make it available for the plants. And the plants will let the microbes know when they need more nutrients. So with organic fertilizer, you're going to have nothing that's wasted or washed away. So if the plant doesn't need it, it will wait until it does need it. It sends the plant's roots send out these receptors to the microbes that are telling them, yes, I'd like some food. Those microbes eat it, process it, provide it in a way that it's available to the plant. Um, this process helps improve soil quality because we're increasing microbial activity. When we improve the soil, we're helping with its water holding ability. And when we have healthy soil that's supporting healthy plants, those are going to be more resistant to disease and weed pressure. And this slide shows kind of the difference where when you have chemical fertilizers, they're really just concentrated on what the plant needs, giving the plant nutrients specific. Um, Organic fertilizer is putting those nutrients into the soil. They have to be broken down by microbes for the plant to absorb it. So it's improving soil over time. This is also what makes it a slow release process and how nothing's wasted or washed away. Then the post-emergent product that we do on our next application is going to be the chelated iron. We'll refer to it as liquid iron. This is so it's iron and it's disguised as amino acid. So we can blanket apply it to a lawn. The grass, which is a monocot, that will only take up as much iron as a nutrient that it needs. If it needs it, and it has receptors to turn off when it's had enough. Dicot weeds, which are broadleaf weeds, those plants will basically overdose on iron. They will think it's food, they'll intake too much of it, and then overdose on the iron application. That's how those weeds are suppressed. Not all of them take in nutrients the same way, so not all weeds are affected the same with iron. It's very specific to certain ones, weeds that they've tested it on. And there's some applications or some weeds that need several applications of iron to be effective. So a good example is creeping Charlie. When that iron is applied to it, it might turn purple, start to kind of shrivel up a little bit, but it will put down a new node. It will grow beyond the stress and it will recover from that stress. The idea with multiple applications of iron is that you're continually stressing it out. So we will apply for cases like creeping Charlie's, we'll apply the iron every 3 weeks. So as that weed is recovering from the iron stress, we're going to hit it again. We can do iron applications 4 times in a season as a maximum. So for our maximum effort, we will do 3 applications of iron 3 weeks apart, starting in the late spring. And then we'll save that fourth application for the fall. And that is that's because the weeds, like the perennials that are preparing for dormancy, they'll take in all of their carbohydrates to their root system. They'll be in a weakened state, and we're hitting them when they're weak. And that's a good way to do a good job and have it be have less recovery time for that weed so we can get some good suppression there in the late fall. So iron, multiple applications of iron can always be requested. We'll often ask for pictures or maybe assess the lawn or talk over what weeds were of concern, because there are some that the extra irons will not be effective against, so that we don't want you to waste your money on that. There's some that are rated for it and definitely need some multiple applications. Our standard program always includes 1 iron application, and that is specific for the dandelions in the kind of late spring, early summertime. And then I'm just going to show you the weeds, like visuals of the weeds that the iron is rated for. This is sometimes helpful because most of us will not know what weed is which. And some of these are confusing with each other. So black medic can be one that looks like clover. This is one that's rated with iron, and we can get that suppressed in about 1 or 2 applications. Broadleaf plantain is one. Now, this weed is also a sign of compaction. So it's usually several things going on when we see weeds that will help alleviate the situation. The broadleaf plantain does need 3 or 4 applications of the iron to be suppressed. It has a thicker leaf, and it just needs more stressing out to actually kill it. Thistle, so this includes bull thistle and Canadian thistle. Those also need 3 to 4 applications to be suppressed with the iron. Common chickweed, this can be suppressed in about 1 or 2 applications. This one's a little tricky because it can be confused with mouse-eared chickweed, which that one the iron is not rated for. So sometimes difficult to tell the difference between the two, but one of them the iron does work well against. Creeping buttercup, we don't see this one too often. Dandelion, so also people with large dandelion issues. So especially if you're across the street from a park or from an area that those dandelion seeds are blowing in all the time. Dandelions are biennial, so that means they're perennials and they're annuals. So they'll blow in all season. Some persist this spring. They will be from last season. So any dandelions that are out, the iron can work against as a post-emergent. But after the application, a month later, there might be some new dandelion seeds that are going to emerge. And those could be the ones that are just blowing in. So for tough dandelion problems, we recommend multiple irons so you can get those subsequent blooms throughout the season. The biggest one tends to be in the late summer. So sometimes we could just do one in the late spring and then do another one in late summer to get good control. One thing to keep in mind is if you pull the dandelion with like a dandelion picker, if the whole taproot is not is not gotten with that pull, then the iron has nothing to work against, and that dandelion could regrow. So sometimes we'll say, if you can, let them be, like if you just keep mowing the yellow tops off, that can be helpful for the aesthetic of it, and wait for that iron application to come, because it needs the leaf parts to be able to adhere to be able to kill it. Um, Even pulling off yellow tops is helpful, because then you're stopping the yellow from becoming those white seed heads that blow around, that will be introducing more dandelion plants. So dandelions it's re lawns with like really bad issue. I will say that it's we can get it under good control after 5 years, depending on how many iron applications to just keep working on these subsequent blooms. Dovefoot geranium, that one we don't see too much. English daisies, it works well against. False dandelion, don't see a lot of that, but they are around. Heal all is one that the iron works well against in one or two applications. And we always note that this is in the bee lawn mix, or a lot of pollinator lawn mixes. So something that once you sow a bee lawn, we don't apply iron anymore, because we don't want to suppress those flowering plants. So it can be a bit tricky when you have a pollinator lawn and then have something like creeping Charlie come in, because then there has to be some choices in how to try to manage one weed without having ill effects to the other. So we'll note if somebody has a bee lawn, and we will not include the liquid iron in that application, or in their scope of work. Lawn burrweed, yellow wood sorrel, also called oxalis. This one is commonly confused with the black medic and clover. Luckily, they all actually can be suppressed with the iron. The slender speedwell, shepherd's purse. This is a winter annual, so this is one that germinates in the late summer. The I'm going to say it wrong, cinquefoil silverweed. White clover. So this is another weed that's pretty common in lawns. Um, the iron is rated to have ill effects for the white clover, but it does take several applications for it. Clover is one that some people do not view as a weed. So it is pretty prevalent in Minnesota. It also used to be sown with grass in the 1950s for all home lawns, because it's a natural fertilizer, lives very well harmoniously with grass. So this is one that we don't necessarily deem it always as an issue in a lawn, especially if it's in a 5% part of the lawn. It's good for our pollinators. So something to note to the office: if you have clover and you don't want it, then might reach out and let us know, because we could add some more irons to the scope of work to do better on suppressing that weed. And that, I should say, that white clover is also part of pollinator mixes. So again, something that is good for our pollinators, hard to keep this plant while trying to suppress other things, because it will have ill effects with the iron. Wild chamomile, wild geranium. And so those are all the weeds that the iron is rated for. So note that it won't work against anything grassy. So it's only on broadleaf weeds. It's only on some weeds. Um, this slide can kind of show what the iron looks like when it is working. So things will turn kind of purpley brown, shrivel up. Sometimes you see the parts with the green still in it. Those are the parts that might recover, and that's what we're multiple applications are stopping it from recovering. Um, I don't think you can see it very well, but the treated lawn versus the untreated. So you can see spots in here. They have squares that they treated with the iron, that you can see that it works on things like dandelions. So we have several tools that we use. We talked about corn gluten meal. That's our pre-emergent. That is what we apply in the early spring. We will stop that about the first week of May. Then we'll move to our late spring liquid iron, our post-emergent weed control application. Multiple applications of liquid iron may be necessary for certain weeds. Um, the other part that we do for weed control is we sow allelopathic grass species. Those are grasses that like to be around themselves, so they will ward off, unlike things from growing around them. So when we prevent some weeds with corn gluten, when we get some out that have emerged with the iron, then we can in the fall sow grass seeds that naturally help. Uh, crowd it out, ward them off, grasses that like to support other grasses and not broadleaf weeds. And then there's always a portion of our weed control, and that's what homeowners can do to help with the process. So one of the biggest, I would say, biggest things that a homeowner can do to help or also can contribute to some issues is watering. It's very common to overwater in Minnesota. And it can be tricky because the last few years we've had some very significant drought years. And so what we might have done before every year is a new challenge. And really, what grass needs is it needs 1 inch of water per week. It likes it to be applied all at once, so a nice deep soak. So if we were having a period of time where we can look ahead and see that maybe in July we're going to have a week and it's going to be hot and dry and there's no rain in the forecast, the best method for and to not waste water is to give the lawn a nice soak ahead of that drought period. So you want to run your sprinkler or irrigation long enough to saturate the lawn to 1 inch. We recommend something like a tuna can or something that you can run your sprinkler, and then you'll know how long that takes to get to an inch because everybody's sprinkler system is different. Even different zones can apply water differently. So it's nice to give a little audit when you're doing it, and then you'll know how long you need to soak the lawn for. There's also, we have rain gauges that we can give to homeowners. You can have those out in the lawn, and if during the week we have received 1 inch of rain, it doesn't have to be at the same time. If we've just received that much moisture in a week, there is no need to add water to it. Grass actually likes a period of drying out. It's very healthy for it. So we recommend watering deeply and infrequently. Doing that, you can see in this image, when you water too often, those grass roots never have to find where to get moisture. They are always receiving it from the sky, and so that it encourages them to be shallow roots. When we water deeply, we're going to allow those grass roots to chase that water down. And when grass roots are longer and thicker and healthier, they're going to be more drought resistant. So you don't need to water as often. So that is one reason we also recommend keeping your irrigation in the off position, and you can turn it on ahead of dry periods and keeping it off during those weeks that we've had plenty of moisture. Um, some people don't want to turn their irrigation on and off, so just having it set uh, by a professional, or if when you get the irrigation turned on for the season, you can have it run once a week and long enough to saturate to 1 inch of water. And so again, grass, it does need periods of drying out. We'll see in the summertime, it's very common for lawns that have disease symptoms. Sometimes they look like drying out and it's actually too much water. Or you think about the root system and the thatch layer having moisture in those places too much can create some stress for the grass plant. So turning off the water can actually be very helpful during periods where you're seeing some discoloration or some signs of disease in the summertime. Um, We've also had many years where we never had to water. We had plenty of moisture most of the season, but then we've had the last 3 years where we've had some significant dry periods. Um, so once the grass goes into a dormant state, so when it turns yellow all through, throughout the lawn, it's dry. It is not dead, it's just dormant. It's protecting itself from the harsh elements. And so it's turning off its receptors and protecting itself to survive through that period. Breaking dormancy is much harder to do with water than preventing dormancy. Um, just one thing to note. And then a couple years ago, when we had the very long drought, grass can go without water for about 40 days. After that, it really does have some significant consequences to the crown of the grass plant. And so that's when we really get into there might be some death caused from the lack of moisture. So again, just talking about that, 1 inch of water per week, that's a good general rule throughout the summer. Mowing is another cultural method that homeowners can do. Always keeping that grass at least 3 inches high. The root system of grass will mimic the top half of the grass. So the longer that grass is at the top, the longer that root system is. And then that grass is going to be more drought resistant. It's going to weather through some of those stress periods much better. So we would really recommend 3.5, 4 inches in really for entering in a period of drought in the summer, keeping it as high as you can, and then making sure not to mow when it is dry, when it's gone dormant, because that's a good way that you can kind of crush the crown of the grass plant with the mower, and all mowing stresses grass out. So doing it in a period when it's already stressed might put it to a point where it can't survive. Um, One thing that happens that can be kind of detrimental to grass is if it's accidentally cut too short. So if you have it long and you cut off more than a third of that grass blade, that could create a stressful event that it's too much and it might die off there. Stressing grass out also provides a great opportunity for weeds to come in. So keeping that grass healthy is a good way to keep the weeds at bay as well. Um, Keep your blades sharp, change your mowing patterns. Those are all good general rules for mowing. And then seeding. So we do seeding ourselves in the fall as part of a standard program. Not everybody needs to have it, or some people have additional seeding in there, or you might seed yourself. And so just something to keep in mind when we're talking about seeding is finding the right cultivars. So we look at the NTEP studies every year, which is studies they do on grasses, and they do them in Minnesota. So we look at grasses that are doing well in Minnesota, that overwinter well, that are allelopathic, that are more drought resistant, that are more low maintenance. So they don't require as much nitrogen, they don't require as much water, they don't require as much sunlight. Those are all good cultivars of grass that we want to sow for our low maintenance organic lawns. In thinking about if you're buying seed on your own, making sure it's customized to your sunshade level, having grasses that are right for the right condition that you want to put it. Um, Drought tolerance, allelopathic, those are all characteristics that we want to look at when we're choosing seed, especially one seed from another. I always like to share this slide, which is just a helpful cheat sheet if you're buying seed on your own. I always recommend turning the bag of seed around, looking at the back of what it says, and making sure that it falls within these guidelines. So you want the purity of that seed to be over 85%. You want the germination rate to be over 85%. So you want to buy seed that is going to have a high chance of germinating. Otherwise, it would just be a waste of money. You want your weed seeds to be under that 0.3%, other crops under 0.5, and then inert matter under the 8%. There are some seed that has maybe 50, 60% inert matter. Typically, that is seed that's with mulch. And so you're really not getting a lot of seed, you're getting a lot of other stuff. So you want to kind of look at that. You want the date tested of the seed to be in the last 9 months. So you want the seed to have, it can only be guaranteed of these things in a 9 month period. And then when you see the varieties, you can always look at those and see what you're getting. So this example in the picture here, you have some red fescue, chewing fescue, hard fescue, sheep fescue. Those are all really nice fescue varieties. The sheep one is one that's used a lot in no mow a situation that has that really pretty aesthetic when you don't mow it. But then you have in this variety, you have annual ryegrass. So you have about 10% of that. Annual means that it will only live for a year. So you want to make sure when you're buying seed, you're buying some that is a perennial. It's going to come back. You want it to overwinter well. These annuals can be fine for some situations where you need to have some erosion control. When we're thinking about our home lawn, we want to have things that are there year after year. So, what to expect? Many of you have probably been on the program for multiple years, but uh, we try to send attachments and make videos and set the precedence of what to expect with organic lawn care because it is different than synthetic. And we have limited tools in our organic toolbox and just using what is available and keeping abreast of anything new that might come on the market isn't really important to us. So it's a process. It's a choice to make. It is something that you want to do for multiple years. You'll see the best success the more years that you're on a program. You think about soil is made over millions of years, and so improving soil, it takes multiple years to do that. And soil is really the base of our grass plant, and that's what we need to be healthy to support a healthy plant. We always have tolerance for 5 to 10% of weeds. That's after 3 years. So when we can get that corn gluten to work on the seed bank that's inherent to the soil, we can get the iron to work on some of those weeds that are established. We're sowing new grasses, but we're always going to have areas in the lawn that are tricky, that are along sidewalks, driveways, trafficked areas, sometimes where maybe a male person is walking. Those can be compacted spots, and those will have more weeds in it. And so we're always thinking about why is a weed there? What can we do about it? And then there's just a certain amount that our organic tools are not going to be able to do or eradicate. And then I think there's there it going organic is tough choice for some people in terms of it's going to cost more and you're going to have your expectations go down a bit in the weed control. It the organic products that we use are very expensive. We buy I believe we might be one of the biggest buyers of corn gluten in the state. The more we buy, the less those costs can go down. More people that get on organic programs buy organic fertilizers. Those should help our costs go down. We source products that within 500 miles, so we're thinking about being local, but all of that is expensive, and unfortunately, that's similar to like organic food. It's going to be more expensive until we all go adopt into the system. So at any time, if you want costs broken down, if you want to know, what you're getting and how it breaks down to the product. If some people like to kind of price check to see what you could buy yourself and apply and see how that compares. It's just more expensive, and so just setting that expectation that's what we're paying for, and over time the lawn is more low maintenance. It needs less inputs. It works better on its own. It's meant to over years you can put down less fertilizer. You can organic lawn is easier to take breaks from and let it work on its own than a synthetic program that's kind of tied into a system that needs those external inputs to work effectively. With organic, that you have those microbes helping the process and improving that, and so over time it should be a much lower maintenance situation. And that is my last slide. And I'm happy to, I know I went through that kind of quickly, but I'm happy to answer any questions that you have. I don't think I saw anything in the chat quite yet. Does anyone have any questions?
You have to not water it for a while after.
Yeah, this is Doug. We have vinca around our trees. Will that affect any of that?
Um, the iron could. So um, the uh, the liquid iron is really just meant for grass to be applied in the grass only. Any other plants, any wanted like it actually works. I didn't put that on the slideshow, but it will kill things like moss. So when people are trying to establish areas of moss, it could have ill effects. So whenever you have something like around a tree that you want us to steer clear of, then we can just make a note for the crew and just say stay away from those areas, so we don't have any ill effects. But otherwise, corn, gluten, meal, anything that's established, it's not going to affect it. It's just going to feed it. And I use corn gluten meal in my vegetable garden when I'm planting plants, not seeds. And I put it there as a fertilizer and as a weed control to help with the around the my veggies. Any other questions?
Yeah, this is Betsy. I have a question. So it looks like the only fertilizer you use is corn gluten. Do you ever have any other organic fertilizer that you put on sometime after the corn gluten has done its magic for the weeds, for the weed seeds?
Yeah. Yep, we do on our we do apply organic fertilizer 2 times in the season. So the second application with the iron, that's going to include organic fertilizer, and then we also include organic fertilizer in the fall, and that's going to be with our seeding efforts. We do have a several types, and so we use grain-based organic fertilizer, and we also use turkey litter based. The turkey litter we do with the seeding effort in the fall. And so we're actually thinking about so we do corn gluten twice a year, the fertilizer twice a year. The whole season is about 3.8 pounds of nitrogen that we apply in the season, and that's going to support all different grass species in Minnesota. We're fertilizing a little more than what fine fescues need. Our grass mix is mostly fine fescues, and that's for our sun shade and our sun our shade only seed. But a lot of people have things like Kentucky bluegrass in the lawn too that needs more nitrogen. So we're putting it at about an even amount that's going to support both of those, with the idea that we don't, we're not encouraging 100% Kentucky bluegrass lawns that are going to need a lot more nitrogen.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
It's Doug again. Any suggestions for moles?
Yeah, yep. So moles, we don't treat them specifically, but I do have a referral. It's Metro Mole Control. That is a company here in Minnesota. Rick Huberty is the owner of that company, and he is an expert in moles, voles, and gophers. There is a difference. Moles are the ones that are under the ground. They're digging tunnels, so you can kind of if you feel a tunnel, you can kind of sink down into the lawn. Voles are ones that we see more in the spring of damage because they eat the top of the grass and they have trails on the top of the grass. They like to live there under snow cover. He will know the difference, and he does a lot of trapping. And then gophers are the ones that cause a significant amount of damage and are a little more tricky to control. So Rick Huberty, Metro Mole Control, their website is metromolecontrol.com. Their email is info@metromolecontrol.com. And then his phone number is 763 350 0331. And sometimes there is always the question of grubs and moles, and the combination of the two. Moles do like to eat grubs. So sometimes people think if I have a mole, that means I have a grub problem. It could be the case. Sometimes controlling grubs in trying to control moles, it's a good idea. It doesn't necessarily work because sometimes when those grubs are treated, the moles still just live in the lawn and they would just wonder where their food went. It doesn't mean they go away. So that's something that he will talk about. And you know, usually I think it's a trapping thing to get them out of living in the lawn. Does that help? And and I can email this information as well.
Yes, thanks.
Mhm.
Betsy again. Um, do you apply compost at all during the growing season
Mhm. Yes,
for
we
the
do
lawn?
offer organic compost top dressing. It's not part of our standard program.
Uh,
We do it anytime during the year. Um, a lot of times we do that in the spring for problem areas, so dead patches, grub damage, something where uh, there might be a need or there's really a spring seeding can be done with slit seeding or can be done with compost and seed. There's a couple different reasons you do one or over the other. Usually, let's say if there's like tree roots or some sort of kind of fussy situations, it's nice to put compost in there and then sow seed into that because it can be a good place for it to grow new grass and solve bad soil issues. We can top dress entire lawns with the idea of improving the soil. It does a really good job of adding organic matter and can improve things like clay soil, sandy soil, doing something to speed up the process that the organic fertilizer will do. So yes, something we can price out. We do we don't do just spots. We encourage homeowners to, if they need to seed certain spots, to buy some compost and do it that way. But we can do entire lawns or like front yard only, backyard only situations. And we do get our compost from Wisconsin. It's called Cosmo. And that is one that you can find retail at a lot of places around town, like Clear's Nursery or Magnuson Sod in South Minneapolis. I think Bachman's might have it. Gerton's probably has it. It's a really good compost. I've seen it in bags at grocery stores. It's a really they have a lot of nice garden mixes and mixes that you can use for the lawn. Very highly recommend them.
Hi, this is Greg.
Hello.
Thanks for doing this.
Yeah.
So it sounds like corn gluten meal should go down right now. And then do you water it in right away?
So corn gluten meal, you don't have to water it in. Uh, it
Okay.
does like um, it does like a bit of moisture within 5 days of application to kind of start breaking it down. Um, Normally in the spring, we're going to get some sort of moisture within 5 days, and uh, and we don't want to you don't want to oversaturate it and kind of like wash it away either or have it break down too quickly. So we don't usually give recommendations that you have to water it, but you certainly can. I just wouldn't overdo it. If people don't have their water on early, there's no need to water it in. There's actually none of our products need to be watered in except for the seeding, of course, to have that germinate.
Mhm.
And then if dogs are interested in corn, that can happen because not all are, but some of them are very interested. Then I'll tell them to water it in to get it to the soil quicker. So it's just not such a problem with the dogs or like ducks or turkeys, things that are coming into lawn and eating it. If that becomes an issue, I always tell people to get it watered in so it gets to that soil so it starts doing what it needs to do.
Thank you. I think I can put it down tomorrow and it's supposed to rain Sunday and Monday a little bit, so maybe that works.
Yeah, that would work.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions or any slides you want me to go back to? Um, I do hope to share this, so we'll share it on our YouTube page. We'll put it on our social media. But if anyone wants it emailed directly, I can email that. And if you want any of these slides, I'm happy to share. And then this was a suggestion from a homeowner that I do this, and I can't believe I didn't think of it sooner. So we do plan to do one every month. And I'll kind of gear it toward what's happening in our, in our environment at the time. But also if there's things that I should include for future ones that you want to suggest, I'd be happy to do that.
Shay, I have a question about the corn gluten um, pre-emergent we just had put on. What in your presentation you said there's the rate of 25% the first year, 50% second year, 75% third year. I didn't understand that. Can you explain what rate of what?
Yep. Sorry, I might have not said that very clearly. So we apply the corn gluten in the spring. We apply it at 20 pounds per 1,000 square feet. So that's the rate you'll see when they apply it. They will make 2 passes, and that's them getting that rate down. That rate is the effective rate for weed suppression. What you can expect from that is that the first year that it will suppress 25% of new weeds that season. And then the second year, you're going to suppress 50% of new weeds. The third year, 75% of new weeds. So it's showing that the more you put down corn gluten in subsequent years, so that when you get on an organic program, we'll recommend working it for 3 years from spring to fall because you're getting that corn gluten application each spring. And so your weed control will improve every year.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Shay, we appreciate your support of Minnesota Public Radio.
Oh, good. Yeah, I've been, well, I'm a big supporter, and we've been supporting them for since we started. That's where the only place that we advertised in the beginning was on NPR, and we're happy to continue that. They're really we love their programming and love what they do, and love supporting Minnesota, our Minnesota places and communities and things that we use here locally. Any other questions? Well, I think because we're about at an hour, so I will, if you have any questions, feel free to email me. My email is Shay, Shay, at Team Lunseth, and Lunseth is Lunseth. And yeah, we're an open book. Anything you have come up during the season, please communicate here with the office. In these future webinars, we will have Ronnie and Ryan and Justin participate. Ronnie is our senior account manager, Ryan is our account manager, and Justin is our general manager. You, I'm sure, have seen emails from all of them. Justin mostly does our scheduling, and so he's the person who's going to be rescheduling things as we need or set up the schedules. Ronnie is going to be the main person who answers the phones when you call the office. Okay, I guess with that, I will stop sharing my slides and yeah, I will look forward to doing this again. Thank you so much for participating.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mhm.